Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, today we are covering the Pac-12, and we're recording this before week 0. So if USC lost to San Jose State, we do not know that
Ouch.
yet.
Yeah.
That'll be a rough one. But let's just get right into it. Trey, what are your just general thoughts about the Pac-12?
Well, I mean, I kind of have two things. One, we've obviously talked all about the realignment and the Pac-12, of course, like basically disbanding. But it's kind of weird that in their final year, arguably it's one of their best years that they like in terms of the top depth, man. Like they literally have a chance to, make an argument to be the second best conference this year if those top teams kind of really pan out. Especially if you consider all the star power they have at the quarterback position in the conference. I mean, USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, UCLA, Oregon State, like all top 25-ish teams. Few have playoff potential. So kind of an odd twist that, before they leave, it's
like the
really
worst
good.
possible time for it to be the end, because it's just like let's run it back. It's going to be a great year.
Exactly. I have another point, but let's see what else you guys have to say.
No, it's just I'm going to try to soak in it as much as I can this year. Pac-12 football, man. It's kind of sad to seeing it be just completely disbanded. But I don't know, like overall, like to me, like I want to see USC's D, man. I really want to see that. Like, is that going to improve? Because if it does, then we know the futures could be national titles. Like I know they were close to the playoff last year, but even Michael, a USC fan, would agree they weren't really a true threat to win a national title. So I feel like this is a pretty important year for Grinch to like take that next step because, they had a lot of turnover luck last year defensively, but can they actually be good? Because if we see that, then it's like, okay, now Lincoln can win a national title there.
Yep. And it's like talking about how interesting the conference is. Obviously, it starts with USC, Oregon, Washington, and Utah, kind of the main four at the top, with Oregon State and UCLA threatening that group. But even some of the worst teams in the conference are interesting, like Colorado, potentially the worst team in the conference, maybe not, but they're maybe the most fascinating team in college football with Deion Sanders and his son Shedeur Sanders at quarterback and the insane amount of turnover on the roster. Kind of a similar situation at Arizona State. They had a ton of turnover, and bringing in a young coach in Kenny Dillingham, who, of course, did a great job at Oregon. And then, I mean, even Stanford is, again, one of the teams in the running for the worst team, and they'll be bad. But I like Troy Taylor, their head coach, coming in from Sac State. So I don't know.
You could talk yourself into about all of them. Arizona with Jaden DeLora back, their program's been rising a little bit. Wazoo's always been okay, even with Dickert. Maybe they could, second year Cam Ward. I'm sure they can make bowl game.
And I don't know about you guys, but like, it just feels like this whole off season, you've got the two-time defending champs, Utah, who are kind of actually flying under the radar just because, obviously everyone's talking about SC, Caleb Williams, Deion, of course, but Washington and Oregon with Nix and Penix, like Utah's still got a lot coming back, but they're kind of under the radar. That's kind of what Willingham probably.
That's what happens every year with Utah.
Yeah.
At least some people are saying that. You hear more people saying, "Hey, why are we ignoring Utah again?" So there's that sort of aspect of it. But yeah, I mean they should be really good.
Willingham or Whittingham, either way. Whittingham.
Oh, maybe you did. And
Tyrell.
I don't know if I repeated what you said or not, but
yeah,
I knew who you meant.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how about let's talk about some surprise teams. What are some teams that you think that might outperform expectation?
Okay, I'm gonna go with Cal. Good old Cal, the Golden Bears. Yeah, they're 4-8 last year, but they were 2-5 in one-score games. So, and they even were keeping the games close against some of the top teams in the conference, like USC, UCLA, Notre Dame. They're not in the conference, but they're good. And Washington. All those games were like one-score games. So they were there with high-quality teams. So, they obviously need to get better and, pull a couple of those out to really make a jump. But I think they should be better on the field this year. They got a ton of returning starters, and Sam Jackson, the TCU transfer, was just named the starting quarterback for them, and he's brings some kind of exciting potential. He's obviously a really athletic guy with a live arm. So, I mean, you would think he'd be able to bring some juice to that offense, which they desperately need. And I think the defense will kind of take a jump forward as well. They got Jackson Sermon back at linebacker. He was first team all conference for Pac-12, so he's legit. D line looks pretty good, deeper at least. Maybe not star power, but they're deeper and return everybody. So I don't know. Their season total set at 5, so they're actually getting a little bit of respect. But I don't know. I could see Cal making a bowl game this year.
All right, that
they
would
got
be
the
big
new
for,
offensive coordinator too. I like that hire. Spavital.
Yeah, Jake Spavital. Yep. Yeah, that would be obviously big for Wilcox. I'm going to Arizona State, just because I think there's upside with Kenny Dillingham. Like I mentioned, at Oregon last year as their offensive coordinator, I doubted him going in. I didn't think it was a great hire. Like I just didn't think he was gonna. The combination of him and Bo Nix, I was like, I don't know about that. And then, Bo Nix was
week
in the
1. You
Heisman
felt pretty good.
It was Georgia.
when they got murdered by Georgia. Yeah,
they scored 3
that's right.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they went and murdered BYU or something like that. But
anyway,
so it went great last year for him, and so now he's at Arizona State. He brought in a lot of transfers, so he brought in, I guess, his guys. Hopefully that'll work out for him. And they named Jaden Rashada, the true freshman, of course, who had that crazy recruitment with Florida, as their starting quarterback. So there's a lot of potential there. I don't know. I just think I think they can maybe pull off a big upset with that offense. Defense, I don't have a lot of confidence in the defense, but maybe the offense can help lead them into bowl contention.
Sure. Surprise team. I'll finish this off with Washington State. Cameron Ward didn't quite match expectations last year, but still overall a decent year. Not as bad as I think people thought. Now he gets a great offensive coordinator. Well, we think Ben Arbuckle, who was just at Western Kentucky and had his quarterback lead the nation in passing. So the pass volume for Ward should go up. I see him putting up some big numbers. He's obviously still athletic. He can use his feet. So I think that the offense could really improve. And the other good thing about them is they avoid USC and Utah on the schedule. They're not really a threat to win the conference, but they could scare some teams. And I think that Ward could take the next step with Arbuckle.
Okay, let's get to the other side. It's the disappointing teams, and I guess here I'm gonna be the one. Very bad move the last few years. I'm gonna doubt Utah. Obviously, if they win the conference again, it's not gonna shock me. They're up there, but so. I guess the biggest part of this is just the fact that we don't know Cam Rising's health, right? Coming off that ACL injury in the Rose Bowl, and there's some signs that maybe he's not 100%. Kyle Whittingham or Willingham, some people call him, is being kind of coy about it, and who knows, maybe he's just sandbagging, or maybe he's not quite 100%. But the real reason I have some doubts there is that point spread in that week 1 game against Florida keeps coming down and down and down. Like I think it was started up close to double digits. Maybe it was 10, 10 and a half.
I think it was like 8 or like 9.
Yeah, it was over a touchdown recently. And now it's down to 5, I think, last I checked. So, there's at least some doubt there as to whether he'll play or be 100%. And on top
I think
of that,
Florida's getting some respect too. I think that's partially why it's coming down.
Fair enough. Yeah, maybe just the market just getting more efficient as we get closer to kick. But also, if anything happens to Rising, their backup quarterback suffered an injury. I think he's out for a few months. So I just think that there's some downside potential. And it's also maybe even somewhat less about Utah and more about teams like, USC, Oregon, and Washington, of course, continuing to recruit well and seeming to, especially in Washington, USC's case, just they have good coaches now. So as those teams develop talent better and utilize that talent, even if Utah stays the same, maybe they get passed up. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I actually said Utah as well. For a lot of the reasons was Cam Rising, but also just because they kind of need a healthy Cam Rising right from the start because their schedule is so hard in their first 5 games. I mean, you mentioned Florida. Then they also play at Baylor. They play UCLA. And they play at Oregon State in 4 of those 5 games. So I mean that's a tough stretch. They have I think Weber State is sprinkled in the middle there, but so 4 to the 5 are tough, and you lose a couple of those, and all of a sudden it's tough, man. Things might snowball a little bit on you, but I think also losing Clark Phillips is actually kind of a bigger deal than maybe some things. He was this All-American like corner, just unanimous He was amazing for them, and not necessarily a typical defender for Utah. They're good on the lines normally, but they don't necessarily have All-American corners lined up for them. So that's kind of a big loss. But yeah,
And they draw. I mean, all of the top. The good news
yeah,
for fans is that all the top 4 teams draw each other. So
Yeah.
that's going to be kind of
yeah,
fun. But Utah also draws kind of the next two. You would think in Oregon State and UCLA. So the schedule is difficult.
Mhm.
Yep. I'll go to Washington. It's kind of like in the sense that I could make a case for any of those top 4 or 5 teams to win the conference. I could also kind of point to some negatives, and in this case, Washington just happens to be my loser, that I think could disappoint. It's very well known if you've listened to us or watched us. We love Kalen DeBoer. I don't doubt their offense will be good, but I guess the way I'm looking at it is they I don't see how they could really get better, and they might take a step back. I don't think Penix maybe can match those numbers, especially with he loses 3 offensive linemen. Now their top 2 running backs from a year ago are gone because Davis just got hurt.
yeah,
I know they're a pass first offense, but those top 2 running backs, they had they had over 1,400 yards, 25 touchdowns. Uh, that's a lot of production. Now I know they have elite receivers, and Penix can get them the ball. They'll be fine, but I just think maybe there's a slight regression there potential. And then I'm also just not so confident on the defense. It wasn't a stellar unit last year. They gave up over 29 points a game in conference. And of the top contenders, they're projected to have the worst defense.
Okay. And Penix, another injury risk there
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
We hope not, but okay. Anything else? Should we get to our championship picks here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Ryan, who you got? You sometimes like to go outside the box, so
Yeah, a little outside the box. Not
it's
this
hard to
time.
get. I mean, you can't really go outside the box in the
I
Pac-12
know.
this year. There's so many,
It's- exactly. I mean,
good
it's
teams.
those 4. Even you could throw in Oregon State, and that wouldn't be like. I guess that'd be outside the box, but still. I'm going USC versus Oregon. I'm going kind of chalky there. I don't know USC. I think obviously, of course, the offense is going to be great with Caleb Williams back, the Heisman winner, Lincoln Riley. It's going to be amazing, and I believe that Grinch is going to have a pretty good jump on defense. I know they lose Tui Pelotu, but they brought in some good transfers, of course, up front. Bear Alexander from Georgia, he should start right away in the middle for them. Anthony Lucas on the edge from A&M. Jack Sullivan, a solid depth guy from Purdue up front. Mason Cobb, a great linebacker from Oklahoma State. So there's some impact guys, and they have better depth. I don't know. I think the front 7 is definitely going to be a little bit better. Secondary, maybe about the same-ish. So I don't know. Another year in the system, some improved players. Defense, I think, should get better. Offense is amazing. USC is hard to beat. So
Yeah,
I'll let you guys touch more on Oregon, but USC and
Grinch-
Oregon for me.
Grinch gets a lot of crap, and rightfully so. In some cases, he's had like last year was a total flop, other than getting lucky with turnovers early in the season, especially. But he did. I mean, he did from year 1 to year 2 at Oklahoma. The defense got a lot better. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't count on that big of an improvement, but I agree that
They don't
they'll
need a ton
improve.
to just,
Yeah,
win the conference. Like maybe not even at all, really, but like
yeah.
a little bit. But I have USC beating Oregon, so I have USC winning the conference.
Yeah, I have the exact same pick. You made all good points about USC and Oregon. I mean, I think I have them like dead even. I would say
Yeah.
it's really hard to pick. I just gave the tiebreaker to USC just because of coaching. Like I just trust Lincoln Riley more. He's constantly winning 11 games. It feels like, and with Oregon has a little bit more turnover with Kenny Dillingham, of course, leaving. Now they're bringing in Will Stein as offensive coordinator from UTSA, which I think is a good hire, but it's still a change. And yeah, so that was basically my tiebreaker. I'm going USC.
Yeah.
I think I'm confident that USC is going to be very good this year. They have a tough schedule, so the record. I wouldn't pick them to go 11-1 again necessarily. They've got a chance, but I think they'll be a better team.
Yeah, we're a clean sweep for us at USC over Oregon. I really almost went Oregon, but I was my tiebreaker in my case was I just go with the best player on the field, and that was Caleb Williams. I mean, if Caleb Williams doesn't get hurt in the Pac-12 title last year, they could have beaten Utah. I mean, it was so.
Yeah.
They could be the defending champs. I guess my worry, Michael, is on USC. You guys touched on defense, but I think you even mentioned the schedule. 4 of their last, so the first half is very easy. They more than likely, I think, will be 6-0. But 4 of their last 6 games are against preseason top 15 teams. You got Notre Dame, Washington, Oregon, and then Utah, as well as also playing UCLA. So that's a really tough back half. So. And then Oregon, I do think Dan Lanning didn't have the greatest defense last year, and that's kind of his calling card. But I do think he hit the transfer portal hard on that side. So I think that unit should improve, even if there is any decline in the offense with Dillingham. Kind of those could match, and I think the Ducks will obviously be in contention.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add about the Pac-12? I just realized we didn't even mention DJU at
Yeah,
Oregon State.
it's true.
That'll
One
be interesting.
officially
to
the
see what happens
starter.
there.
DJU, yeah, Dante Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking
Moore,
for the UCLA. Yeah,
UCLA's quarterback situation. Yeah. So very fun conference. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Who you think's going to win the Pac-12? Also, as always, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/collegefootballbros for bonus episodes. And I think the best perk is being able to join our Discord server where we're talking college football, especially a lot during the season. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.